everyone. Welcome back for another deep dive. You know we love digging into history.
Absolutely.
And this time, we're heading to Scotland.
Excellent choice.
You guys sent in this book, Scotland, A Raw and Unfiltered History.
Oh, I've heard of this one.
And let me tell you, the author does not hold back. We're going to have our work cut out for us, separating fact from, well, let's call it passion. Thankfully, we've got our expert here, ready to dive into some raw and unfiltered Scottish history.
I am always ready for a challenge, especially when it comes to unpacking those colorful interpretations.
Okay, so Scotland, most people. Castles, bagpipes, maybe a bit of Nessie for good measure.
Right, the classics.
But we're going way back. Before the castles, before even really Scotland as we know it. We're talking Picts, Gaels, the works.
The OGs.
Exactly. And it's easy to think, oh, one group conquers another. Right, simple.
It rarely is. The Picts and Gaels are a perfect example. It wasn't just one replacing the other, it was centuries of blending. Cultures fusing, sometimes smoothly, sometimes not so much.
Right, so it wasn't all Braveheart battles and clear-cut winners and losers?
Not always, no. The Gaelic language itself, it didn't just wipe out Pictish. We see traces of both, words, grammar, like a tapestry with threads all woven together, creating something new.
And I bet we can still see those threads today, right? That's the cool part, how these ancient interactions still have an impact.
Absolutely. It's woven into the very fabric of modern Scotland.
See, this is what I love, finding those echoes of the past. But the story doesn't end there, does it?
Definitely not.
This book, it throws us a curveball with the Vikings.
Oh, how so?
It claims they weren't just raiders, they were practically embedded in early Scotland.
They were certainly a force to be reckoned with. Don't forget, they established a kingdom, the Norrera-Hanstholm, stretched all the way from Denmark to the Shetland Islands. Not as famous as some, but vital to early Scottish economics. Imagine bustling trade, Viking ships bringing goods from all over, a time of incredible exchange.
So even back then, Scotland was this crossroads, a hub of activity.
Oh, absolutely. And this Norrera-Hanstholm, just one piece of that puzzle. It highlights how interconnected Scotland was, even in its earliest days. Part of a network stretching across the North Sea and beyond.
So we've got Picts, Gaels, Vikings, all making their mark on early Scotland. It's a vibrant mix, to say the least.
It's a testament to how diverse Scotland's roots really are.
And into this mix comes Christianity. But knowing this book, it wasn't exactly a smooth transition.
You'd be right to think that. This author loves highlighting the dramatic points. And the arrival of Christianity had its fair share.
Oh, I bet. So how did it all go down?
Well, our book focuses on a key figure, St. Columba, and the famous Iona Abbey he founded.
Okay, I think most people picture abbeys as these places of peace. Tranquil, right?
Right, a refuge. But Iona, it had a double purpose.
A double purpose. What else was going on there?
Remember those Viking threats? Well, Iona wasn't just a spiritual center. It was built to withstand attacks.
Wait, seriously, they were building fortresses disguised as abbeys.
Pretty much. Thick walls, strategic windows.
Yeah.
This was a time of constant tension, remember?
Wow, so even their religion was shaped by the need for defense. Talk about a reflection of the times.
Yeah, exactly. It speaks to that resilience we keep seeing in Scottish history.
For sure. But we can't talk about Scottish resistance without mentioning the icons. William Wallace, Robert the Bruce. I'm sure our author had something to say about that.
No, absolutely. But don't expect the romanticized Hollywood version. This book gets into the nitty-gritty, the brutal reality of those wars of independence.
Right, a good reminder that history isn't always pretty.
No, it's not. And beyond the battlefield, those wars had massive consequences. Socioeconomic shifts.
Yeah.
For instance, land ownership. After the wars, certain clans gained huge influence. Power dynamics changed for generations.
So it wasn't just about political freedom, it was about reshaping society from the ground up.
Precisely. It's like a ripple effect. Each action leading to unintended consequences down the line.
Which seems to be a bit of a theme here. And unfortunately, as we move on, things don't exactly get easier, do they?
No, they don't. Now, we have to address a very difficult chapter. The Highland clearances.
This is one of those parts of history that's both fascinating and heartbreaking. For those who don't know, what were the clearances?
Imagine. Entire communities, generations of families who'd lived on the land, suddenly evicted. That's the essence of it.
Forced from their homes. It's hard to imagine the scale of the upheaval during the Highland clearances.
It's a dark period, no doubt. But even in the face of such hardship, you see that Scottish spirit shining through. that ability to adapt, to hold on to their identity.
And that brings us to, I guess, a bit of a brighter chapter. This idea of cultural revival. Scotland holding on to itself even as the world around it changes.
It's remarkable, isn't it? We often see history in these neat little boxes, but this book does a great job of showing the connections. Like those displaced by the clearances. Many ended up in cities, Edinburgh, Glasgow, places already buzzing with new ideas.
Which brings us to the Scottish Enlightenment. Everyone knows the big names, Adam Smith, David Hume, but I have a feeling our author dug up some lesser-known figures too.
Of course. This book loves to challenge those traditional narratives. Like, have you ever heard of Margaret Townley?
Townley, can't say I have.
She was brilliant, a linguist, scholar. Her work on language origins challenged so many assumptions of the time.
See, this is why I love these deep dives, always learning something new.
Exactly. History's full of these hidden figures, people making huge contributions, but their stories haven't always been told.
Makes you wonder what else is out there, waiting to be rediscovered. But the Enlightenment wasn't just about philosophy, right? It coincided with this huge cultural revival.
Oh, absolutely. Traditional music, folklore, it all saw a resurgence. Even the kilt went from practical garment to a symbol of national pride. And you know what else reflects this period?
What's that?
Scotch whiskey. Its rise in popularity, the way it was produced, it all ties into this era of rediscovering and adapting tradition.
You know, you don't often think about Scotch having this whole backstory. It's like what we were saying before, peel back the layers, and there's a whole world of history there.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And for Scotland, it's this constant balance, holding on to tradition while embracing change. From the Picts and Gaels all the way to the modern era, it's remarkable.
Wow. We covered a lot, didn't we? From ancient stones to, well, Scotch whiskey. It's a reminder that history isn't just dates and battles, it's about people. Their struggles, their triumphs, their ability to adapt and keep their culture alive.
It's a story that continues to unfold, even today.
Exactly. And that's where we leave you, our listeners, with something to think about. What's next for Scotland? This nation that's seen so much change, will it remain part of the UK? Or forge a new path? It's a question for the history books, but also for the future. Big thanks to our expert for joining us on this incredible journey through Scottish history. And to all of you listening, keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and keep those deep dive requests coming. We'll see you next time.